Julian Crest threw a homeless black boy out of the Eastbridge Gala before the child could reach the board chair. The boy's note slid under the glass model of the riverfront development and waited there while donors applauded the future. By midnight, that note had done what no adult in the ballroom had managed to do. It sank the $300 million deal. Eli Carter did not come to the gala for food. That was the first lie people chose because it made them feel less cruel. He came because the paper in his pocket was folded into a square so many times the corners had gone soft. He had written it under a stairwell light at Harbor House, using a blue pen Maya found in a donated purse. The note had a parcel number, 6 initials, a door code that stopped working after 10, and one sentence he had rewritten 3 times so it would not sound like begging. "Don't sell them the shelter lot. We still sleep there." He had practiced saying it out loud, not to Julian Crest. Eli did not know who Julian was then, except from posters around the ballroom showing a man in a velvet dinner jacket beside renderings of new towers and trees too perfect to shed leaves. Eli needed Helen Mora. Helen had visited Harbor House last winter with cameras and a wool coat the color of oatmeal. She had crouched beside a plastic table where Eli was drawing a city map from memory, and she had said, "Children first, always." Adults said things like that when they thought children were the safest audience. Eli remembered. Now Helen stood near the ballroom model, laughing gently with donors while a city photographer took pictures of the redevelopment plan. Eli moved between waiters, keeping his shoulders small. His coat sleeves were short. His shoes squeaked because the soles were cracked and the lobby floor had been polished like ice. He reached the model table. Parcel 9B was covered by a little green park. That was how Eli knew the adults had lied on purpose. The old brick annex was not on the model. The metal side door was not on the model. The boiler room where 3 kids slept when beds ran out was not on the model. He took out the note. "Ms. Mora," he said. Helen turned. Before she could answer, a hand closed around Eli's shoulder. "Who let you in here?" Julian Crest asked. His fingers were hard through Eli's thin coat. Eli tried to hold the note out. "Parcel 9B isn't empty." Julian looked down at him, then at the donors watching from the nearest tables. A smile arrived on his face without warmth. "Did you learn real estate from cardboard signs?" A few people chuckled because Julian was rich enough to make meanness sound witty. Eli's throat tightened. He kept his hand up. Julian leaned closer. "This room is for people building the future, not begging from it." Then he turned Eli toward the doors and shoved him out of the ballroom. The note slipped from Eli's fingers. He had meant to keep it safe. Instead, it slid across the carpet, hit the base of the model, and disappeared under the miniature park that had been placed over the place where children slept. Eli Carter was 13 and could draw Eastbridge from memory better than most adults could read it from a zoning map. He knew which bus shelters had working lights, which church basement locked its side door at 9, which convenience store let kids warm their hands by the coffee station if they did not steal, and which blocks the outreach vans skipped when the river wind got too sharp. He knew Harbor House by sound. The front door groaned because the frame swelled after rain. The upstairs pipes knocked twice before heat came through. The annex side door clicked softly if the latch caught and snapped like a trap if it did not. The boiler room had one metal grate where warm air moved when the heater worked, and that grate had a dent shaped like a thumb because a boy named Jace kicked it during a panic attack. Eli knew that too. He lived with his sister Maya, who was 17 and had the exhausted patience of someone who had been forced to become a parent without being allowed to become an adult. Their mother died during a summer that smelled like disinfectant and bus exhaust. Their father disappeared by degrees, first in promises, then in phone numbers that no longer worked, then in silence. Maya kept them together by knowing systems: shelter intake, school forms, food pantry hours, which caseworker was kind but late, which supervisor smiled while saying no, which offices called children minors when they wanted to sound protective, and occupants when they wanted to move them. Harbor House was supposed to be temporary. Temporary became a year. The main shelter had 20 youth beds and too many bodies. In winter, staff opened the annex on Parcel 9B. The city called it overflow service use, which meant the beds existed when children were cold but disappeared when documents needed clean lines. Eli hated that. He did not hate it in words at first. He hated it in maps. He drew the annex behind the main shelter. He drew the side door, the alley light, the fenced yard, the heat room, and the path kids took when the front desk was full of adults arguing. He drew the small X where Maya told him not to stand because the camera was broken. He drew circles for places people slept even if the city called them storage. Maya caught him drawing the first deal map 2 nights before the gala. "Where did you get that?" she asked. Eli flattened the wrinkled paper under his palm. "Recycling bin behind the office." "Eli, it was sticking out. That does not make it yours. It had our lot." Maya sat beside him on the lower bunk. The shelter light made her face look older than it was. She read the page. Crest Meridian Phase 2. Parcel 9B. Vacant municipal service lot. Pre-close heat repair completed. No residential displacement. Maya read the last line twice. Then she said a word Eli was not supposed to use. "They can't," he said. "They can if the paper says nobody is there." "We're there." "Not in their paper." That night, he began the note. Maya told him to give it to Ms. Torres, their caseworker. He did. Ms. Torres looked frightened when she saw the parcel number. She took a photo, promised to request an emergency meeting with Eastbridge Civic Renewal, then came back the next day with eyes that did not want to meet Maya's. "They said the certification is out of our lane," Ms. Torres said. Maya asked, "Whose lane are the kids in?" Ms. Torres did not answer. Eli stole the pen from the donated purse that evening. Maya did not stop him the second time. "If you go," she said, "you go to Helen Mora. Not security, not donors. Helen." She promised. "I know." She might not remember. "Then make her." Maya folded the note herself, pressing each crease hard. "If anybody grabs you, drop it near somebody with a badge," she said. "What badge?" "The kind that scares other adults." At the gala, the badge belonged to Priya Nair. Priya did not look frightening. She looked tired, careful, and underdressed for the room in a black suit that had been bought for court hearings rather than charity. Her badge hung from a blue lanyard that read, "City Housing Audit." Julian had noticed her at the check-in table and smiled the way men smiled at rules they planned to outspend. Priya was not supposed to be at the gala. She had been added after 2 council members asked why the displacement certification for Eastbridge Riverfront Renewal had been rushed to the same night as a donor event. Her office had received no formal objection to the certification. No open residential use appeared on Parcel 9B. The file said unused municipal service lot. Priya did not trust clean files submitted at speed. She stood near the model table, watching people discuss the future over a place she had not yet walked. That was why she saw the note slide under the miniature park. She also saw Julian's hand on Eli's shoulder. She saw the boy's feet stumble as he was pushed toward the ballroom doors. She saw Helen Mora freeze for 1 second and then fail to move fast enough. Julian guided Eli out with security at his side. "Find out how he got in," he said. Eli did not cry. That made it worse somehow. Priya waited until Julian turned back to the donors. Then she crouched beside the model and reached under the fake park. The note came out dusty at one edge. Helen reached her. "What is that?" Priya unfolded it. The handwriting was uneven but careful. "Don't sell them the shelter lot. We still sleep there. Parcel 9B is not empty. MCECJTRL and baby Noah sleep in the annex when beds run out. Side door locks at 10 if Mr. Dale forgets. Heat room work order 4418 says fixed, but the heater still cuts out. If they sign tonight, the heat room locks Monday. Please count the beds before you count the money." Priya read it once. Then she read it again. Helen whispered, "MC." Priya looked up. Helen's face had changed. "Maya Carter," Helen said. "She read a poem at Harbor House last year." Julian returned smiling with 2 city officials and an investor from his fund. "Good news," he said. "The situation is handled." Priya held up the note. Julian's smile dimmed. "What is that?" "Evidence," Priya said. "It is a child's note." "Yes." "From a child who trespassed into a secured donor event. A child you threw out." Julian's eyes hardened, but his voice stayed social. Priya, this room is being asked to support $300 million in civic renewal. We cannot chase every folded note from a kid trying to stir emotion, Helen said. He wrote a work order number. Julian turned to her. Helen, please. Priya checked the city system on her tablet. Work order 4418. Heat repair. Harbor House Annex. Status closed. Completion photo attached. She opened the photo. It showed a different door. Not the annex. The paint was blue. Harbor House's side door was brown and dented below the handle. Priya enlarged the metadata. The photo had been taken at a Crest Meridian-owned storage property 6 blocks away. The ballroom did not know it yet, but the deal had begun losing blood. Eastbridge Civic Renewal had been born from good language and bad maps. For years, the Riverfront District sat between promise and neglect. Empty lots, half-used warehouses, a closed bus depot, the old municipal service yard, Harbor House, 2 churches, a boxing gym, and the kind of apartment buildings developers called underutilized because families used them without paying luxury rent. The city wanted revival, jobs, parks, safer streets, grocery access, tax base, affordable units promised in attractive percentages. A board of civic leaders formed Eastbridge Civic Renewal to partner with private money and manage public trust. Julian Crest brought the private money. His firm, Crest Meridian Capital, promised $300 million for Phase 2, a riverwalk, mixed-use towers, a public plaza, retail, and an innovation corridor. The rendering showed children flying kites on grass where winter shelter overflow had lined up at midnight. They showed a cafe on the block where Maya once waited 2 hours to get Eli a coat voucher. Julian knew how to speak in totals. 3,000 jobs, 800 units, 20% affordable, 5 acres of public green, no residential displacement from city-owned parcels. That last sentence mattered. The financing package needed a no displacement certification before midnight. Lenders wanted it. Council wanted it. Donors wanted it because they preferred compassion verified by paperwork. If Parcel 9B was occupied by shelter youth, even informally, the certification could not stand without a relocation plan and hearing. So Parcel 9B became vacant, not all at once. First, the annex was called Temporary Overflow, then Overflow was called Service Use, then Service Use was placed outside residential review, then Heat Repair was marked complete, then the model received a park. Children disappeared most cleanly when each adult erased only one line. Priya understood that kind of erasure. She had started in housing audit after watching her aunt lose an apartment because a building owner classified a rent-stabilized unit as storage during a conversion. It took 2 years to prove the unit existed. By then, her aunt lived in another county and the building had a rooftop pool. Priya had promised herself she would never let the word temporary become a hiding place without checking the door. Now, a 13-year-old had done what the certification file did not. He had named the door. Priya asked security to bring Eli back inside. Julian objected immediately. He was removed for disruption. He is a potential witness. He is a minor being exploited by activists, Helen said. By whom? Julian spread his hands. This is a classic tactic. Introduce a sympathetic child, create confusion, freeze capital, and then demand concessions, Priya asked. Did you read the note? I do not need to validate every emotional performance. Helen took the note from Priya and read aloud. When she reached, please count the beds before you count the money, the nearest donor table fell silent. Julian's jaw tightened. A city deputy named Warren Pike approached with a folder. Priya, the certification needs to be transmitted by 11:45 if escrow is going to release before midnight. Then we verify Parcel 9B now. Julian laughed softly. Now? Yes. We are in formal attire at a gala. There are children outside your boundary. That is unverified. Priya held up the tablet with the false completion photo. So is your heat repair. Warren frowned. That could be a vendor upload error. Great, Priya said. Let's go see which door is warm. Helen looked toward the ballroom doors where Eli had vanished. I'm going, she said. Julian turned. Helen, you are board chair. Yes. The donors are waiting for your remarks. They can wait. If you walk out over a child's note, you risk collapsing the confidence this deal requires. Helen looked at the model, the little park, the Riverwalk lights, the clean future under glass. Then she looked at the note. I helped build that confidence, she said. I should know what it's standing on. They found Eli outside the service entrance between two security guards and a catering truck. He stood with his arms folded tight, not from attitude but cold. The jacket Maya had found for him was too thin for the wind off the river. His eyes moved from Julian to Helen to Priya, stopping on the note in Helen's hand. You read it, he said. Priya crouched slightly, not too much. Children knew when adults performed softness. I did. I need to ask you about Parcel 9B. Eli's eyes flicked to Julian. Julian said, Young man, this is your opportunity to explain who sent you. Nobody sent me. Children do not wander into gala ballrooms with parcel numbers. Eli's face closed. Helen stepped closer. Eli, do you remember me? He nodded once. I need to know if the annex is being used tonight. He looked at her for a long second. Then he said, Count the blankets. The sentence did more than answer. It accused. They did not take the donors to Parcel 9B. Only Priya, Helen, Warren, Julian, a city facilities liaison named Thomas Reed, and two security staff went. Eli came because Priya insisted. Maya was called from Harbor House and told to meet them there. Julian disliked that too. The gala continued behind them with a jazz trio and a room full of people pretending a missing board chair was a scheduling choice. Outside, Eastbridge looked less like a rendering. Wind moved trash along the curb. The river smelled metallic. The gala lights glowed behind the hotel windows while 3 blocks away, Harbor House stood under tired street lamps, its main sign flickering over the door. Parcel 9B sat behind it, a low brick annex attached to the old service yard, officially empty, unofficially breathing. Eli led them through the alley. Don't step there, he said to Helen. She stopped. A broken bottle glittered near the wall. Julian muttered, This is absurd, Priya said. Then it will be quick. Thomas checked the work order completion photo against the door. Different site, he said. Warren looked uneasy. Could still be an upload mistake. Eli pointed to the brown side door. If Mr. Dale forgets, it locks at 10. Who is Mr. Dale? Priya asked. Night staff. He wedges it with a chair when the latch sticks. Julian said, This is exactly what I mean. Informal misuse of a service space does not create residential status. Maya arrived before anyone answered. She wore a Harbor House sweatshirt under a coat with one missing button. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare and tired. She walked straight to Eli, touched his shoulder, then faced the adults. You threw him out? She asked Julian. Julian said, He entered a secured event. You put your hands on him? I guided him out. Eli looked at the ground. Maya saw that and turned cold. Priya stepped in. Maya, can you confirm whether youth are sleeping in the annex? Maya looked at Helen. You came last year, she said. Helen nodded. You said children first. I did. Were we first before or after the wire? Helen flinched. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. I took pictures because Ms. Torres said we needed proof. She showed them the annex door. A small triangular sticker had been placed above the handle the week before. What is that? Priya asked. Staff said transition team marked doors for access changes. Tomas leaned closer. That sticker isn't city facilities. Julian said, It is likely contractor inventory. Eli said, It's on the memo too. Everyone looked at him. What memo? Priya asked. Maya saw it on Ms. Torres's laptop when she came back from the meeting. It said outside project boundary. It had triangles. Julian's face did not move, but his eyes did. Priya saw it. Open the annex, she said. Warren hesitated. We may need authorization. Maya walked to the side door and entered the code. The lock blinked red. She tried again. Red. Eli looked at his watch. It's after 10. Julian said, So no one is inside. Maya turned on him. The front desk moves kids before a lock if there's no bed. Some stay if they're already in. Priya looked at Thomas. He used a city facilities override. The door opened. Warm air did not come out. That was the first thing Helen noticed. Inside were mats, folded blankets, 2 cots, a stack of donated coats, and a portable heater that was not plugged in because the outlet had scorch marks. On one cot lay a stuffed giraffe missing one eye. Against the far wall, a teenager slept with a hood over his face. He woke when the light hit. "Are we in trouble?" he asked. Nobody answered quickly enough. Eli did. No. Maya started counting blankets. Not dramatically, not for effect. She walked the room and counted what the city had not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Baby Noah's blanket was folded in a plastic bin because Noah and her mother had been moved to the main building that evening after a volunteer complained the annex was too cold. Priya photographed everything. Tomas checked the heat panel. "Repair not complete," Warren whispered. "Oh my God." Julian stood near the door, face hard. "This is an unauthorized use of a service annex," he said. Maya turned. "Children sleeping under a city program are not unauthorized." Julian looked at Priya. "You have enough to request a review. That does not mean the deal is fraudulent. We can fund an emergency winter van, relocate the youth tonight, and keep the certification pending review." Eli said, "You said outside project boundary?" Julian looked down at him. Eli did not look away this time. Priya asked, "What does he mean?" Julian answered too fast. "I don't know." Maya lifted her phone. "I do." She had a photo of a laptop screen, taken crooked and partly blurred, but the phrase was visible. "Move youth overflow records to temporary site outside project boundary before certification." Beside the text was the triangular marker. Julian's voice became quiet. "You photographed a caseworker's laptop," Maya said. "She left it open after telling us we were safe." Priya took the phone and sent the image to herself through the audit channel. Julian stepped closer. "You are creating serious legal exposure for a program you depend on." Maya smiled without humor. "Funny, so are you." They returned to the gala with colder feet and a different room inside them. Eli and Maya were brought through a side hall, not the front ballroom. Priya insisted they be seated in the small civic office off the lobby, away from donors and cameras. Eli drank hot chocolate someone found in the hotel kitchen. Maya did not drink anything. She kept looking at the door. "Are they going to send us back?" Eli asked. "No," Maya said. She said it fast. Too fast. Priya sat across from them. "I need to scan your note into the audit file with the city affidavit." Eli looked worried. "Do I get it back?" "Yes." "Don't lose it." "I won't." He watched her unfold it like it was something breakable. Maybe it was. In the main conference room, Julian shifted strategy. He was no longer denying the annex existed. He was minimizing what existence meant. "This is a service use complication," he told Warren and Helen. "Not residential displacement. The children are already under Harbor House programming. If anything, our investment creates long-term capacity to serve them better." Priya entered with the scanned note in her system. "The certification says no residential use on Parcel 9B. Temporary youth overflow does not equal residential use. It equals children sleeping there." "Priya, you know how classifications work." "Yes," she said. "That's why I'm not letting one eat 6 kids." Julian's eyes narrowed. Warren held the revised affidavit. "We can add pending winter services review and still transmit." Priya looked at him. "You want to sign no displacement pending review of the displacement?" "It preserves escrow while we investigate. It preserves the deal while children remain uncounted." Julian leaned in. "If escrow fails tonight, the entire Eastbridge package may die. Jobs, affordable units, public green space, everything." "Are you prepared to carry that because a classification needs refinement?" Helen said. "Julian," he turned on her, "you wanted this. You stood at the podium for it. You told donors Eastbridge was not going to be left behind again. Now you are going to kill $300 million because an informal overflow room was not properly categorized?" Helen looked tired. For a moment, Eli's note trembled in Priya's hand. That was the danger, not Julian's cruelty, his almost reason. The way he could place jobs on one side, children on the other, and call the scale civic maturity. Priya scanned the note into the audit system with the revised affidavit. The system took 3 seconds. Then Warren's tablet chimed. Helen's phone chimed. Julian's phone chimed. Certification frozen. Contradictory minor shelter occupancy. Evidence. State Housing Monitor. Hold escrow notice transmitted. Julian's face changed. Not fear. Calculation interrupted. A file appeared in the packet index. Phase 2. Quiet vacate schedule. Priya opened it. Julian said, "That is privileged." "No," Priya said. "It is transmitted." The schedule loaded slowly, which made the room lean toward it. Close annex access Monday. Disable heat room entry. Transfer overflow youth to temporary site outside project boundary. Remove shelter signage from parcel 9B. Confirm no children on map before wire. Helen put one hand over her mouth. Priya clicked metadata. Opened 8:14 a.m. User Julian Crest. Comment: no children on map before wire. No one defended him immediately. That was how truth first entered rooms built to resist it. Not as justice, as delay. Julian looked at Helen. That comment referred to presentation materials. Children should not be used in maps for investor decks. Maya's voice came from the doorway. Then why were we in the way of your money? She had come in with Eli behind her. Priya stood. Maya, you don't have to. I know. She looked at Helen, not Julian. My name is Maya Carter. MC in Eli's note. He used initials because I told him not to put children's names on a paper adults might throw away. Eli stared at the floor. Maya continued. EC is Eli. J is Jace, who kicks the heat grate when he panics. TR is Talia Rose, who sleeps with her sneakers on because she had to run once. L is Luis, who keeps pretending he's 18, so staff won't call his aunt. Noah is a baby. Her mother is 19. They are not a service use complication. Julian said, no one wants harm to come to them. Maya finally looked at him. You wanted us off the map before the wire. The sentence did what the note had done. It removed the hiding place. The state housing monitor joined remotely at 11:07. The lender froze release at 11:12. Council withdrew preliminary blessing at 11:18. By 11:26, the $300 million deal was no longer a deal. It was a file under review, a lender hold, an escrow lock, and a ballroom full of donors realizing the riverfront model had been prettier because someone had made the children disappear from it. Julian did not give up. People like Julian rarely stopped at exposure. They tried to choose the first official sentence, because the first official sentence becomes the hallway everyone else must walk through. He proposed one. Eastbridge Civic Renewal has paused the redevelopment package for additional community review after receiving new information regarding temporary services near Parcel 9B. Priya said, no. Julian stared. You are not the communications director. No. I'm the person whose audit system froze your certification. Helen looked at the draft. Her hand hovered over the table. She had built Eastbridge Civic Renewal after her brother was shot outside a closed grocery store on the riverfront. She believed investment could be mercy if shaped right. She had spent 4 years persuading donors that the neighborhood deserved more than memorial candles and boarded windows. Julian had given her a way to make hope look financed. Now, hope had a boiler room full of children beneath it. Helen turned to Eli. I'm sorry. Eli did not answer. Maya did. Don't apologize soft. Helen closed her eyes. Then she rewrote the statement by hand. At 11:42, she walked into the ballroom. The jazz trio stopped. Donors turned. The model still glowed in the center of the room. Parcel 9B remained covered by its tiny, dishonest park. Helen stood beside it. Tonight, she said, a child named Eli Carter entered this gala to warn us that Parcel 9B is not vacant. Julian Crest had him removed from the ballroom. The note Eli dropped under this model contained evidence that youth were sleeping in the Harbor House Annex, that a heat repair record had been falsified, and that a no displacement certification would be false. The room stayed silent. Julian stood near the back, expression carved from stone. Helen continued. An audit review has confirmed contradictory shelter occupancy evidence and an internal schedule to move youth overflow outside the project boundary before certification. The lender has frozen release. Council blessing has been withdrawn. The $300 million Crest Meridian Phase 2 deal cannot proceed. A donor whispered, Oh my God. Helen looked toward the side door. Eli stood there with Maya. Priya stood slightly behind them, not touching, not presenting them, just present. Helen said, We were told the future needed clean maps. We should have counted the beds before we counted the money. The first person to clap was not a donor. It was Thomas Reed, the city facilities liaison, standing near the wall with his work boots still muddy from Parcel 9B. The applause that followed was uneven. Some people clapped from relief, some from guilt, some because silence had become unbearable. Maya did not clap. Eli did not either. Julian walked out before it ended. He was removed from the negotiation team before midnight. Crest Meridian issued a statement about miscommunication and classification complexity. Priya forwarded the packet to the State Housing Monitor and the City Inspector General. Warren Pike was placed under review for attempting to transmit a pending certification over contradictory evidence. Not every consequence arrived clean. They never do. The redevelopment did not become righteous overnight because Julian left a room. Eastbridge still needed jobs. The riverfront still needed grocery stores and lights that worked. Harbor House still had too few beds and too many children learning the geography of waiting. But Parcel 9B did not transfer. The annex did not lock Monday. The heat room work order reopened with emergency status, and this time, Thomas stood in the room while the repair crew fixed the actual panel. The scorched outlet was replaced. The side door latch was repaired. A new intake list named the annex plainly Youth Overflow Shelter Space. Temporary no longer meant invisible. A donor named Celeste Owan, who had intended to pledge to the Riverfront Plaza, moved her money into an emergency winter shelter trust on one condition. Youth advocates, shelter staff, and the housing auditor would oversee spending. Not a savior fund, Maya said when Helen asked her to join a photo. No photos, Eli added. Celeste agreed. Helen apologized publicly twice. The second time, Eli interrupted her. Count the beds before you count the money, he said. The room wrote it down. He did not mean it as a slogan. Adults made it one anyway, as adults do when a child says something clear enough to embarrass them. Priya fought to make sure it became a procedure, too. 2 months later, every redevelopment certification in Eastbridge required youth service map verification. Informal shelter use had to be checked in person, not inferred from parcel labels. Work order completion photos required location metadata. Any no displacement affidavit involving public land had to include a signed statement from service providers within the boundary. Eli did not read the policy. Maya did. It's boring, she told him. Good boring or bad boring? Good boring. The kind that makes adults do stuff before they talk. He liked that. By February, Harbor House Annex was warm enough that kids stopped sleeping in coats. Not warm like a home, warm like a room that had stopped trying to deny bodies. Jace still kicked the grate sometimes, but now the grate held. Talia Rose took off her sneakers before sleeping twice in 1 week. Luis admitted he was 16 and did not get sent away. Noah learned to pull herself up on the edge of a cot and slap the blanket like it owed her rent. Eli kept drawing maps. Only now Priya brought him city copies and taught him where official lines came from. He learned parcels, easements, flood zones, service corridors, and the difference between a boundary and an excuse. One evening, Helen came to Harbor House without cameras. She brought the original Gala model piece for Parcel 9B, the little green park, removed from the development display. She set it on the table near Eli. I thought you might want to break it, she said. Eli looked at the perfect tiny trees. Maya said, That's a weird gift. Helen almost smiled. Yes. Eli picked up the model park. It was heavier than it looked. Can I change it instead? Helen nodded. He took a marker and drew the annex footprint over the grass. Then he drew the side door, the alley light, the heat room, and 6 small rectangles where beds went when the main room filled. He wrote one sentence underneath. We were here. Helen read it and wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. Maya watched her. Now what? Now, Helen said, we don't sign maps that pretend otherwise. The note was laminated in March. Eli objected because laminating made it look like school. Priya told him school had occasionally been useful to civilization, and he allowed it. They placed the note inside the Eastbridge certification training binder, not on a wall, not under glass for donors, not beside a photo of Eli looking brave. Just in the binder, officials had to open before approving land transfers. The label above it read, Count the beds. Eli liked that the note stayed folded at the creases even under plastic. It looked used. It looked like something that had traveled in a pocket, fallen under a lie, and still been readable. On the first warm evening of spring, Harbor House opened the side door without a chair wedged under the handle. Maya stepped through, first carrying a bag of laundry. Eli followed with a new notebook Priya had given him. On the first page, he had drawn Eastbridge again. Not perfect, not saved, but less blank where people slept. He stopped at the annex entrance and looked across the riverfront. The hotel ballroom was visible in the distance, its upper windows reflecting sunset. Somewhere inside, people would keep gathering around clean tables, saying future as if the word belonged to whoever could pay for lighting. Eli did not hate them all. That surprised him. He hated being grabbed. He hated Julian's hand on his shoulder. He hated the laugh in the room when Julian asked if he learned real estate from cardboard signs. He hated that it took a note from a child for adults to check a door. But he did not hate the future. He just wanted it to stop stepping on people who were already lying down. Maya nudged him. You coming? Yeah. You writing another note? Maybe. To who? He looked at the repaired latch, the warm room, the kids inside arguing over a board game with missing pieces. To whoever forgets next. Maya gave him a tired smile. That's a lot of notes. I draw maps, too. They went inside. The door closed behind them with a click that sounded nothing like a lock. Across town, in a city office, Eli's first note waited in the training binder under its plain label. Count the beds, count the doors, count the children whose names make the money slower, count them before the speech, before the signature, before the wire. Because a $300 million deal can shine bright enough to blind a ballroom, but it still has to stop for a folded piece of paper if a child writes down where the truth is sleeping.